Games with Jeff. Howdy folks, and welcome to the very first installment of my new series, What Makes Games Great. Now, I'm super excited to be starting this series because it's all about unraveling the little things in the games we love and figuring out what exactly it is that makes us love them so much. Some of this is going to be personal opinion, but I do believe we can learn a lot about video games and what makes for good video game design. And while our opinions might differ, I think a lot of this stuff is fairly universal, and we can at least have an interesting discussion about the facets of a video game that we like or don't like. Also, I do want to say that this series owes some of its inspiration to videos I've seen by Mark Brown, whose Game Maker's Toolkit channel has lots of great content if you're into video game design. If you end up enjoying this video, I recommend you check it out. I'll be sure to put a link to his channel in the description below. Now, the game I want to talk about today ended up selling very well on Steam, so you've likely heard of it. Stardew Valley is a small-town social and farming sim released early in 2016. Created by Eric Barone, known as Concerned Ape, the game quickly racked up a high score of impressive sales figures and accolades from game review publications. The game has ported to the Switch and the PlayStation and is continuing to sell well and impress many. And part of what makes everything feel so satisfying is the designer himself. And I do mean self. Barone designed and coded everything in the game on his own, from doing the art to writing the music, and the results couldn't have turned out better. It's hard to believe that a single person was able to design a game that feels so complete and tied together. But what really intrigues me about the game is that it manages to be so good despite the fact that it didn't necessarily do anything novel or revolutionary. Games like Resident Evil or Minecraft helped to define their own genres and spawned numerous other games that tried to capitalize on that success. But if anything, Stardew Valley is the latter of those, the game that obviously owes a lot to other games that came before it. And of course, in this case, I'm referring to the Harvest Moon series of console games. And this is really what I found the most interesting about my love for the game. It wasn't that Stardew Valley invented a new system, it's the fact that it perfected an already existing system and made it really the best that it could be. When Harvest Moon games came out, it always seemed like a mixed bag. The new release would have better social features so that you could make friends in the village, but the farming options would be limited. Then the next version would have some awesome quests to complete and stuff to collect, but there were not as many villagers and you couldn't interact with them as much as you might want to. It always felt like the series would expand in one direction while contracting in another. And that's what makes Stardew so great. Barone took the idea of a small-town farm simulator and decided to load it down with all the features and bells and whistles that gamers really wanted from the genre. And to be honest, I think that's just as valuable as coming out with some new genre out of left field. I've always liked the idea of a small-town farming sim, but I was never to escape that feeling of, man, this would only be better if. But what exactly are the features that I'm talking about, and how do they differ from the games that came before them? So here's an example. One of the staples of the Harvest Moon games was the mine. Players would eventually discover the mine and do a bit of digging, netting them some ores and other minerals that they could sell. Digging would eventually uncover ladders that went down a level. Some of the mines went really deep, and you could get better ores as the further you went down. Stardew Valley uses the same mechanic, but amplifies it. The mine is larger, and instead of each floor looking the same, each floor has a randomly generated layout. They are themed too. At a certain level, the mine becomes darker, while at another it's ice-covered. Every 10 or so levels, the player unlocks an elevator so they can return to the top level when necessary. It's not possible to make it to the end of the mine in just one trip. And see, since players can return to each level and continue on, the mine is able to become a kind of long-term progression event. So originally, the player is barely able to go a few floors down, but after leveling up and upgrading items, they can make it to the first checkpoint. Each subsequent visit, they can push down further and further. A new player who is casually exploring the mine might take a week or two before making it to the bottom floor. Finally getting there is one of those rewarding moments that makes players excited and provides a positive feedback experience about the game. Oh, and I left out the best part. There are monsters, and you have to fight them to keep making it further down the mine. It adds just a little element of danger that makes the game more interesting. This example really shows how Barone took a system that already existed, the mining minigame, and expanded and enriched it in a way that would provide much more replayability for players. Heck, just thinking about the mine kind of makes me want to go and do it again now. It was a lot of fun to see how many floors I could make before my character got tired and had to run home, barely making it before I collapsed from exhaustion. And mining isn't the only area where Stardew Valley takes an existing system and makes it better. How about fishing? Fishing minigames are a dime a dozen these days. It seems like every single game has ones, and often they're, pretty boring. And sure, some players like it that way. In a game like World of Warcraft, where you are usually doing intense things like raiding or completing dungeons as fast as possible, having a simple fishing game where you push and hold a button and then release it to catch a fish is actually a good design feature. It breaks up some of the repetition of raiding and dungeon runs and gives players something a bit more laid back to do. But in Stardew Valley, the game is already pretty laid back. I mean, it is a farming simulator after all. So what the fishing minigame does is add a sense of difference from the rest of the game. When you think, man, I'm kind of getting bored with farming, you can either A, go play a different game, or B, find something different to do in that particular game. The fact that Barone recognized this and added in different sorts of activities really shows his foresight and talent as a video game designer. One final thing I want to mention is the fantastic job the game does of building an emotional connection with the intelligent implementation of music. It's not just that the music is good, it's the way the game uses the music to reinforce emotional moments. Characters each have their own theme that plays during cutscenes that unlock as you befriend them, so you come to associate that music with a particular character or a particular event. This helps to make the various experiences one has while playing the game stand out and resonate longer over time. So there you have it, my take on how Stardew Valley adapted and perfected an existing system in order to create a game that's, at least in my opinion, easily the best of its genre. There are plenty of other little things I could include. For instance, while the game does push you a bit to save the town from an evil corporation, you can also side with the corporation and help them build a warehouse in the town. But I don't want the video to go on forever. Have any of you all played Stardew Valley? I'd love to hear what it was that impressed you about the game, and if not, perhaps it deserves a look. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I even included a link to my Patreon in case you absolutely can't live unless you give me $1 a month. Thanks folks, and I'll see you next time.